better introduce you. David McDonagh. However, any more than that. This talk is about a man I so much admire that I thought I'd give myself a pseudonym of Sir Arthur Seldon. Because the topic of tonight is a man who should have been knighted, could have been knighted, didn't get it, but Arthur Seldon.
Yes, indeed.
Take it away, David.
Quite a nice job. I think he's the force behind the IEA, so I've called him Arthur Seldon, the IEA talk. And he was born Abraham Margolis, and in 1916, and he's a family of 2 or 3, and siblings. But sadly, in 1918, both his parents were killed off by the flu that followed the First World War, and so he was orphaned. And so he was adopted out to members of his extended family, and many of his family changed their names, their Christian names mainly. Most of them retained the name Margolis, but eventually he chose Seldon. I don't know why. I've been able to discover why. But he also got a number of other foster parents, and they didn't last long. When he was 10, his foster father died, and so he was quite unfortunate in that way. And so this might have given him some zest in his later arguments, because a lot of people have this sort of guilt that people have said they've been feeling in Western society. The guilt of being lucky when perhaps other people born elsewhere is not so lucky, that sort of thing. And most of these people, I suppose, were born in fairly good circumstances. I suppose Arthur felt that at least no one can say that he hasn't come from a position of poverty. It isn't that he's not known poverty. He had known poverty. But he eventually went to drama school, and at drama school he had 2 teachers, the 2 major teachers that were an influence on him. One of them was a Fabian, a member of the Fabian Society, but he taught economics at the school, drama school. And another was a history teacher. The Fabian was Beale. The history teacher was Haywood, and he taught economic history, and taught especially, what impressed Arthur was the breakdown of the guilds and the replacement of the guilds by what he thought was a freer society. And this veered him towards liberalism rather than socialism, and he remained veered towards liberalism rather than socialism from the rest of his life, really. Now, he didn't come to the IEA until 1957. It had already been started up around about 1955 by Fisher. And Fisher did want to go into politics because he'd read a Reader's Digest version of The Road to Serfdom and was influenced by it. And he happened to find out that Hyatt was at the London School of Economics. He paid him a visit and asked him for his advice on what he should do to help liberalism. And he suggested that he might go, Fisher suggested he might go into politics, but Hayek said, no, the thing to do is to try to influence the intellectuals and change the zeitgeist, as it were, change the spirit of the times, and see if the best thing to do that is to try and set up some sort of think tank. And so he just made a fortune in chickens, the idea he got from America, in cheap chickens, battery-run chickens, I suppose. And he used his fortune to set up the IEA. And of course, the following year, the following year, 1956, Lord Harris, who eventually became Lord Harris, Ralph Harris eventually became Lord Harris. And the following year, 1957, Arthur Seldon joined, and he became the first editorial director of choosing pamphlets like this one. And this is in particular a very good pamphlet. It's on about planning, and of course the major argument against socialism, which Hayek was peddling, and had been peddling for some time since he got it from Mises in the 1920s, was the economic calculation argument. And that's basically that how, if we were going to set up a new society called socialism, how would we calculate the wages of people, how would we calculate what investments we made, and how would we calculate what we pay for our consumer goods, so we'd know where to work, so we'd know what to invest in, and so we'd know what we could afford to buy as consumers or as customers. Now, what this indicated, what this argument indicated, was a phenomenal thing. It was come out, it's got a long prehistory, as it were, or history running back. Gosson had a version of it, Marx himself had a version of it, and Engels had a version of it. But Pearson was the person who put it forward in the early 19th century, around about 1902, to the leading Marxists today, Karl Kautsky. And now, Marx basically had this Aristotelian position, which was the idea that things would sort themselves out in the long run. As he forever used to repeat, I don't bother to write recipes for the cookshops of the future. I let it sort itself out. And Marx had the idea that giant firms would benefit from economies of scale, and they'd solve almost any problem. A firm can't be too big in from Marx's point of view. It just gets more and more efficient as it gets bigger. He tended to overlook the diseconomies of scale. And he had this idea, which is still popular now, and probably one of the leading dogmas of any sociology department. That is that all firms are tending towards a monopoly. Now, Marx had this, but in actual fact, the state of monopoly is no more further advanced today in 2017 than it was before Marx was born. There's no real movement towards monopoly at all. What we get is, firms get so big and then they collapse. I mean, there was a firm, it's just an illustration of this. There was a firm called Lions, it's still around, and it had a number of things like ice cream. It had Lions restaurants, which was popular as McDonald's are today, and in fact they're much better than McDonald's for places to go. And they're bigger and they're far more. Actually, they're far more like Witherspoons than McDonald's. They're big, and for places to go, they're excellent. But anyway, in one single week, all of these around the country, there was about in Birmingham at that time there was about 20. But around the country there must have been something like 600-700. All of them, apart from one in Charing Cross, closed down. Now I find that the one that in Charing Cross is no longer there either, is it? The Lions corner store. But anyhow, that was that is now also the ice cream disappeared in that year and so on. Monopolies or quasi-monopolies or oligopolies or big firms suddenly vanish all of a sudden, and this is what's happened. We've had throughout economic history there have been firms growing bigger, but none of the firms have got to be as big as what Marx thought all these big firms would become, and none of them have become so big that they've left the market and found, which Marx thought they would find, a new way of doing things which rivals the price system. In fact, there is no alternative, as far as we can see, to the price system. And now you might think of the USSR. Isn't that a command economy? Well, not even for a second in 1917. The USSR stopped using altogether, totally, the ruble. They printed the ruble, and they used the ruble, and they used it for economic calculation. Now, it's true that they did do. There was this chap's father, Michael Polanyi, wrote a number of books on the economic calculation argument and Bolshevism in the USSR. And in fact, one of them was called USSR Economics, which he published in 1936, which he explained that the USSR was a market economy back in 1936. I think he'd read, of course, the Mises argument, and which Pearson put forward to Kautsky, then was Kautsky had no answer to it, notwithstanding the fact that Kautsky didn't use Marx's answer to it, or be sorted out in the future. He didn't, not explicitly, he just didn't answer Pearson. But there was no tangible answer to it. Marx's answer is that it will be sorted out in the future. And Marx actually attacked in Contribution to the Critique of Economy in 1859. Marx actually attacked utopian socialists, who we call the utopian socialists, with the economic calculation argument, and said they had no answer. He had no answer as well. but he accepted the answer that it will sort itself out when these firms get big enough. But of course they weren't getting bigger. I mean, this is the illusion. They were getting to a certain size, and then they were collapsing like Lions collapsed, like other firms would collapse. Smith's Twists, for example, in the 1950s, if you bought any twists anywhere, it'd be Smith's. Then Golden Wonder took over, and you can't find it. You can find Smith's now and again, but I haven't seen Golden Wonder for ages. And it's now Walker's, isn't it, which has got a sort of now. This is a bit like big supermarkets. They get big. There's currently Morrison's, Asda, Tesco's, and Sainsbury's. They may or may not be around in 20 years' time. Certainly the big supermarkets of the 1960s, Sainsbury's was there, and that's about all. Kingfishers and Trident and so on, these big supermarkets, they've all gone, Gateway and so on, they've all gone west, as it were. And this is what happens, you've seen from before Marx was born, right up till today, and presumably in the next 100 years it'll be just the same. You'll get growth, and you'll get people using the economies of scale, firms will grow bigger, but then there'll be diseconomies of scale, and they'll go down, depending on the supply and demand. The anarchy of the system, as Marx quite rightly called it. So basically, Mises, having worked out this economic calculation argument, sadly, nearly everyone does this. I haven't done it, but nearly everyone does do it, and that is, see, if the economic calculation argument is correct, then there is no socialism. There is no alternative to capitalism. There is no alternative to the market. And that all societies are market economies. Now, they talk about a mixed economy. Well, there can't be a mixed economy if it's just one economy. But what you can have, and what you do have, and what people think is, what non-anarchists, like Mises, like Hayek, think is vital, is you can have, and you do have, the state. But the state is not an economy. The state is something which does what the state does, and it does, according to Mises, and according to Arthur Seldon, and according to Hayek, it actually does essential things that the market couldn't do. Adam Smith would agree with them. Defence, provide perhaps roads, and so on. There's a number of things, sewages and so on. Now, there are some people like David Friedman who would say that the market can also do that. His father was a distributor, Milton Friedman, but David Friedman would say the market can do that. I tend to think that David Friedman is probably right on that. However, it's obviously not going to be sorted out in our lifetimes. I think we will eventually have an anarcho-liberal society, but however many hundreds of years hence that will be, I don't know. It certainly won't be by revolution, because I think revolution is a story on top of a stick. We do start from here, and we do have gradual change day by day. And whatever happens in the future will come gradually. My guess is, I don't think that anything ever was anything that we could call truly a revolution in the past. This is just a romance idea in history, and historians are usually romantics, and they write in romantic terms. Now, the point is this: both Mises and Seldon have two things. Once they have, first of all, they have the economic calculation argument, which says there's no alternative, none whatsoever. No chance of an alternative. Whether you want it or not, that doesn't matter. You've got to have the market. The Soviet Union's market society, as Michael Polanyi said, from the beginning, throughout 1917, throughout 1918 and so on. And then, of course, Lenin in 1921 started painting the black market white with his new economic policy, started admitting that it was a market economy. But of course you have a black market. Arthur Seldon himself, in the book Capitalism, which I'm mainly reviewing here, it says that it's been reported that 7.5%, that's 7.5% of the British economy is the black market. But he himself thinks, in his own estimations, that it will be at least 20%. And he thinks that what's underestimated here is barter. And he thinks there's a lot of barter going on in the British economy. Well, I don't know whether this is right or not, but I do know that, without realising it, of course, I myself have worked a hell of a long time on the black market. And so have a lot of people who know. I used to work as a painter and decorator, and nearly everyone on the firm did what we call foreigners. And what foreigners was, doing foreigners, because it had nothing to do with attacking people from abroad. It was, you had a job of your own, of an evening or of a weekend, which you actually did and got cash in hand for this job. And of course you did it cheaper than what they'd do if they went to a firm. And of course this was not taxed and so on. This was part of the black market. I didn't see it as the black market, no one did. But this is what the economists call the black market. And there's many other things, I don't know how extensive the black market is, but I should imagine it's pretty extensive. People do jobs on the side and they don't report it for purposes of tax, so it's the black market. That's all right. Now this was, there is a story, which I tend to credit, but perhaps I'm naive to credit it, that Stalin, in the Politburo, had a threat over every member of the Politburo, because after all, the market was outlawed in Russia. So you can outlaw these things, you can outlaw anything, you can outlaw the nose on my face, if you like. Nose on my face, anything can be outlawed, anything can be de jure unlawful. But that doesn't always change the facts. If there's a law passed that I haven't got a nose, I'll still have a nose, I guess, unless they can chop it off. So Stalin, the story is this, that Stalin knew that he could have anyone arrested on the Politburo and sent to Siberia, because he knew every last one of them was guilty of trading in the black market, and they knew it as well. And that's the story. And I tend to credit it, maybe it could be false. But so the black market was rampant in Russia. Everyone knew about it, everyone traded on it. And Russia was a market. Now, Polanyi, in saying all this, and he's like, not George, his son, but Michael Polanyi, was in the Sovietology departments and the conferences that they had, was laughed out of these conferences. He had to put up with a lot of stick from these people for saying all this, for saying the Russian economy wasn't a command economy like the textbooks said, but in actual fact, it was a market-based economy. Now the thing is that the romance part of this is this, which Arthur Seldon takes up and Mises took up. They like the idea of, and this is where the romance comes in, there's two paradigms in any advocacy. One would be the Enlightenment paradigm, where it's only a matter of ignorance. Now, either one of us can be ignorant in any conversation, and we probably are. In any conversation, both sides can learn off each other various things. Some person's right on something, and the other person's right on other things. And so that's the Enlightenment. Argument is cooperation, and debate itself. Debate itself is cooperation, although most people think it's conflict. If I'm debating someone, I'm sort of having a fight with them. That's what people think. Completely false. The logic of debate is complete cooperation. The rules of debate is truth, and truth is what we have in common. So the Enlightenment paradigm is one of no conflict, no enemies. So if liberalism adopts the Enlightenment point of view, which I think it should do, liberalism has no enemies. It is just a matter of one side or the other is ignorant. But then the Romantic paradigm is far more congenial to most people, although they say it's nasty, and they look at Parliament swaddling, they say it's ridiculous and so on. And that is us and them. The us and them, so liberals are opposed to conservatives, conservatives are opposed to liberals, and so on. and you know, they're the enemies, and they go on and on and on. You know, there's no end of this. You know, his personal type, he's the Tory type, or he's the Liberal type, and so on. Now, of course, I think that this is romance completely. You know, not only is the whole foundation romantic, but I think that if you have a look at any of these little sects, I wouldn't mind betting, although I've never attended one, if you take any of these Islamic sects, you'll very, very quickly find different personality types, introverts and extroverts and so on, in each one of these sects. You know, they'll all have different, in spite of the fact that one of them might be Islamic or socialist or fascist and so on. All of these groups, independently of their ideological outlook, will probably have all the different sort of personality types, the outgoing ones or the introverted ones or so on. And it will kind of like be a microcosm of society. So I think that the Enlightenment view, that whilst it's not straightforward and so on, or well, it is straightforward enough, but it foregoes the enemy and that sort of thing, is the and you can't have a nice capitalism versus socialism. Nevertheless, the Enlightenment view, I think, is the true one, and the other one is romance. Now, in Mises, both points of view are there, and it somewhat vitiates his book, which was published. He wrote the first essay on the economic calculation in 1920, and in 1922 he had a book, I think, just called Socialism. And this book called Socialism has been revised many times. You can get it, you can probably get it from the library. And you'll see that it's got both what I call the Enlightenment outlook here, the economic calculation. There's no alternative. It's just a matter of whether you know or you don't know. And then the other romance thing of the wiki Bolsheviks and so on, and they're the type who will be hard-hearted and so on. That sort of romance type. Now the same with Arthur Seldon's book, Capitalism, which I'm more or less talking about here. He has both the economic calculation argument, saying there's no alternative, and then he has socialism, and socialism he defines as just favouring politics. Now, once he's defined socialism like that, he has to admit that if you take the USA and the USSR, they've both got their socialist sections, and they've both got their market sections, and of course the IEA did publish in the 1950s consumer behaviour and consumer demand by a lady called Margaret Miller. I did read it some time ago, and I've forgotten it. I should have reread it for this. But they did have this lady published in very early late 1950s or early 60s, but they published another version of it, I think in the late 60s. Margaret Miller, I think her name was, talking about the Soviet housewife and Soviet consumer. And so we have here, playing the nose of your face, really, if you start thinking about it, a market society. Of course, the state. It's state-run and so on, and state rigmarole and so on, but it's still a market, basically a market society. Now, so actually, as you go through the book, Arthur goes more and more towards just saying, well, he tends to drop the word socialism and come up with the word politics. Now, I think this is right. So I think towards the end of the book, Arthur says, the real problem is politics. Now, he doesn't say anywhere in the book what's wrong with politics. And it seems to me that what is wrong with politics is what I'm going to say now. I'm going to put it in terms of game theory. John von Neumann's game theory. There's three basic games. One is the one that we think of most of all, and that we get in artificial games like chess and tennis, football and so on, which is what we call a zero-sum game. In other words, one of the players wins, or you have a draw. Then you have what is the market, which is almost paradoxical to some people, was to me when I first looked at it. The positive sum game where both sides gain. So if you have a conversation with your friend and he enjoys it and you enjoy it, and then you both gain from the conversation. And of course, even the zero-sum games of chess and so on, if you happen to go and play chess with your friend next weekend, the chess game itself will be zero-sum, but the meeting as a whole may well be positive-sum, where you both enjoy, it's not just been chess, you both enjoy each other's company and so on. Now, then of course you have what you get if you happen to be a little boy, say 8, mocking someone in the playground, as it were, and you have a fight with him, and he gives you a good punch in the face, and you give him a good punch in the face, and both of you lose out to the extent that you've hurt each other. And that is what we call a negative sum game. Both of you have lost out to that extent, and you both probably didn't enjoy it either. You didn't enjoy the fight. Of course, that's what you get with war, most clearly. And the positive sum game you get with trade, most clearly. And most of life is either one or the other. It's only in artificial games that you get what George Orwell tended to think was the norm. You know, that 1 and 1 makes 2 and so on, and so on. Arithmetic, which of course is, that part of arithmetic is zero sum. But most people think of common sense today thinks of ordinary life as zero sum. If I gain something, I gain at the expense of other people. And this is one of the reasons why we have the what Mises called, and what Arthur cites in his book, a book by Mises called The Anti-Capitalist Mentality. It's why people think, I'm being done down by these other people, especially in trade. Capitalism is a wicked system and so on. So common sense thinks that everything is zero sum, so therefore if someone's rich, it's because someone else is poor. Well, that's not true at all. That's zero sum, but it's not the way how things are. We have a positive sum relations in society, even in non-money society. As I said with you're meeting with your friend, but in money society and in trade too, we have the positive sum game, where both sides can gain. I buy a Mars bar because I think the Mars bar is worth more than the money I pay for it. If it's only worth the money I pay for it, why should I take the money out of my jeans? The money might as well stop in my jeans. I've already got the sum of the price of the Mars bar, so I only part with this money because I think the Mars bar is worth more. And I would, if they put the Mars bar up, I may well still buy the Mars bar, depending on the on the consumer surplus that's there, or the producer surplus. It will go up to the line of where it doesn't pay me to buy the Mars bar. But as long as it paid me to buy the Mars bar, it paid me more than the price I paid. In other words, we always get a bargain on the market. Every transaction on the market is a bargain. Now, what's wrong with the state?
I think some are more bargains than others.
Yes, of course, yes.
And rentier economy.
And of course, it is true that there's not. I'm not talking equality here. Or should I? I mean, they've got no merit anyway. But I'm not talking equality. There isn't an equal gain on both sides, or anything like it. I'm just talking positive sum, or if you like, win-win, as they call it. But and I'm talking negative sum. Now, what's wrong with the state is that it thrives on taxation, and taxation has to be negative sum, because you don't get a unique transfer payment from Peter to Paul, as many people tell us that we get. What you get is administration costs as well, which means that Peter doesn't get the full extent that's expected of Paul. And so there's been you get a negative. Now that's what's wrong with politics. That's wrong with the state. The state is wasteful, intrinsically wasteful. Now it may well be that Arthur was right and Mises was right, that some things the state has got to do. I say maybe. I don't actually think it is. I think David Friedman and Maureen Rothbard was right. You probably could find ways around it where you could put the lot on the market or have it in charity or something else. But anyway, whether we have to have it or not, it is negative sum anyway. All politics is, and that's the reason why we should keep politics down. Arthur doesn't give us a reason. He says that it pays to keep politics down, but he doesn't give us a real solid reason why we should keep politics down. But that is the reason, because the state is negative sum and wasteful, intrinsically wasteful. So Arthur basically talks in his book mainly about the progress he made throughout his time from 1957 to 1988 when he finally retired. And in this time he had made friends with a lot of socialists and won them over and got them to admit that we probably would have to have a market, because basically the basic idea, which you find up front in little Marxist books. But even when you start pressing people who don't talk about it until you press them a lot, like the Fabian Society,